week. I'm joined now by Dr. Saleyha Ahsan, an emergency medicine doctor who worked in intensive care wards during that time and who lost her father to COVID. Also joining us, Louise Bennett, whose son Fred died of leukaemia in May 2020, just over a week after his 14th birthday. COVID restrictions, of course, at the time meant that only 10 people could attend his funeral. Ladies, it's lovely to have you both on the programme. And Doctor, I hope you don't mind if I just go straight to Louise. Louise, before we kind of go into what we've heard from the Prime Minister today and indeed yesterday, just tell us just a little bit more about your son. Tell us just a little bit about what he and the family went through in those last days.
Well, Fred was being treated in Great Ormond Street Hospital. We'd been in an inpatient in Birmingham and Great Ormond Street for a couple of months by that point. So we'd really seen the lockdown measures slowly increase. By the time he died in May 2020, only my husband and I were allowed in the hospital, and that had been the case for quite some time. So none of his brother, none of his other relatives or friends could see him. And after he died, we came sort of out into full lockdown. So we weren't able to see friends. We weren't allowed to, have people comfort us. We weren't allowed to really have any kind of social interaction with anyone at all. And neither could Fred's friends. I mean, they're teenagers and they wanted to be able to get together and to comfort and support each other. And they weren't able to do that because mixing wasn't allowed, school wasn't allowed. And I think they would have loved 10 minutes to just get together and chat about it.
Having had the chance now, Louise, to kind of reflect on the death of your son and the aftermath of it, and indeed on the apology given by the Prime Minister yesterday. I wonder what you made of it. Do you accept that the Prime Minister, who himself was close to death with COVID, who himself lost his mother during this extended period of the pandemic, do you accept that the Prime Minister is genuinely remorseful given the experiences of you and other people?
No, I don't. And because he's made an apology, that doesn't mean that we have to accept it. And it's the same apology he made after Dominic Cummings was caught breaking lockdown rules by driving to Barnard Castle back in that time. And all of the law breaking that has happened with these parties since then have come after he apologised for that. And after he said, we understand the anger and frustration of people who've made enormous sacrifices, he trots out this line time and time again, but still believes that those laws don't apply to him and that he doesn't have to follow them.
Let's bring in then Dr. Ahsan. Saleyha, thanks for joining us on the programme today. I wonder again, just tell us just a little bit about your pandemic. What were you doing for the majority of your time whilst you were working?
So for the majority of the time, I was working in intensive care during the first lockdown in my hospital. I was staying away from my family. I was in full PPE. The PPE that Boris Johnson we've just heard that he was working apparently so hard to get. He called the opposite side of the House issuing constant clamour for the PPE that they provided. We didn't get the PPE in the adequate supplies that we needed in the early days, and healthcare workers, doctors, nurses and other healthcare workers actually died from contracting COVID, even after they raised their own alarm on not having sufficient PPE. So for me, it was a busy time. It wasn't one of partying. It wasn't one of socialising in hospital staff rooms, as alleged by some of Boris Johnson's supporters. It was spent, if we were going into the staff rooms, it was often to hydrate so that we could put the PPE back on and go back in. It was interesting hearing the opening question from Keir Starmer on the one resignation so far by Allegra Stratton, linked to the Christmas party, the party that she joked about, not that she went to, but she joked about, and that she eventually resigned over, compared to Boris Johnson being looked at for up to 6 parties that he's attended, allegedly. That invoked memories for me of the time when my own father caught COVID and died. My father died. Ahsan al-Haq Chowdhury, a retired teacher, died on the 28th of December. He caught COVID round about the time I think they were opening their secret Santas.
Oh dear, well, I'm very sorry for your loss. Louise, clearly the Prime Minister of the day, has an awful lot on his plate. Dealing with the COVID pandemic, of course, that still carries on, the economic fallout, the situation in Ukraine. Is there any merit in your mind, Louise, to the argument that, at a time like this, when continuity, perhaps, in our politicians would be seen by some as an advantage, particularly if you're dealing with international diplomacy, is there any weight to that argument that Boris Johnson should not be stepping aside right now because of the enormity of the task that he and his colleagues face?
No, because I think the logical conclusion of that argument is that people who have very important jobs can't be criticised because their jobs are too important. And that's obviously not a situation that we want to be in. I think given the importance of the job and given the multiple crises threatening the country and the world at the moment, it's even more important that we have a leader who has integrity and who shows that leadership. And constantly saying, my job is really important, you can't be mean to me, I think he's completely undermining the gravitas of his role.
I will just add then a final word from someone else whose job is incredibly important. Doctor, what are your thoughts at the moment on the way in which the COVID pandemic is going? I mean, how busy are you currently as the Prime Minister himself is getting on with the job?
Yeah, look, I kind of want to come back on that last question. Boris Johnson's method of government by dinner table, it's not fit for the 21st century and the social problems that we're facing both domestically and internationally. What we need, definitely on the front line within the health workforce, is a Prime Minister and a government that we can trust. This government have let us down as a section of the workforce that has been on the front line. It's let down the patients, it's let down the public. As we go into the public inquiry into the government's handling of the pandemic, we need to feel confident that it will be truly independent. And at the moment, with the government's hand, even right now, in the way that this independent inquiry is being drafted, I don't have confidence. They are even deciding the terms of reference.
Dr. Saleyha Ahsan and Louise Bennett, thank you both very much for coming on and indeed for speaking so candidly. Really appreciate it.